The methane winds of Titan screamed against the research station's quantum-reinforced walls, a haunting requiem for a species on the brink of extinction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's fingers, scared from decades of genetic warfare and survival, danced across a holographic interface that pulsed with an ethereal blue light. Each movement was a calculated symphony of desperation and hope. Around her, the station's interior told a story of humanity's final stand. Shattered molecular displays flickered with fragments of lost data. Genetic sample containers, some intact, others fractured like broken dreams, lined the walls of what had once been the most advanced research facility in human history. The room was a mausoleum of scientific achievement, a testament to a civilization that refused to go quietly into oblivion. Elena's augmented eye, a complex biomechanical marvel that was part organic tissue, part quantum computer, scanned multiple data streams simultaneously. The Exarchon Collective's final assault had been brutally efficient. Entire human colonies had been systematically erased, entire planetary systems reduced to cosmic dust. But they didn't know everything. They couldn't know everything. A sharp pain lanced through her skull. The neural implant at the base of her brainstem was reaching its critical point. Designed to store and protect the most crucial genetic and technological information humanity had ever produced, it was now preparing for its ultimate purpose. Activation sequence initiated, a synthetic voice whispered through her mind. Not an external speaker, but a direct neural communication that bypassed traditional audio channels. The transmission she was preparing was more than a simple distress signal. It was a genetic key, a biological algorithm that would unlock humanity's final contingency. Each word, each pause, each microscopic fluctuation in her voice carried encrypted information that would trigger the most complex preservation protocol ever conceived. Outside the station's reinforced windows, Titan's landscape told a story of desolation. The methane lakes reflected the distant light of Saturn, creating a vista of liquid darkness that seemed to consume what little hope remained. Elena knew this would be her last view of anything remotely resembling home. Her right hand, more cybernetic than organic at this point, traced a complex pattern on the holographic interface. Quantum encryption keys began to align, creating a network of information so dense that it would take centuries for any civilization to fully decode. Each fragment was a piece of humanity. Its knowledge, its genetic potential, its unbreakable spirit. The Exarchon believed they had won. They had no concept of humanity's true potential for survival. A proximity alarm blared, silent to anyone but her. The last remaining human outpost was about to be discovered. Elena's lips curved into a smile that was part triumph, part resignation. Everything she had worked for, everything humanity had achieved, was compressed into the next few moments. The neural implant began its final sequence. Genetic markers that had been dormant for generations started to activate, deep beneath the surface of Earth, in locations so secret that even most human governments had forgotten them. Preservation chambers hummed with anticipation. This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, final transmission of Human Research Outpost Prometheus. She began, her voice steady despite the imminent threat. To whoever finds this, whether human or not, know that extinction is merely a transition. Her fingers completed the final encryption. Nanite swarms within her bloodstream began to reconstruct her most critical genetic information, preparing to transmit the ultimate backup of human potential. The station's systems began to power down, creating a cascading shutdown that would leave no trace, no evidence of what truly happened here. Outside, massive Karkan hunter-killer ships approached. Their angular, obsidian-like hulls cut through Titan's thin atmosphere like blades of darkness. They believed this was a routine elimination, another forgotten human outpost to be erased from existence. They were wrong. Elena Rodriguez was about to prove that humanity's greatest strength was never its technology, its weapons, or its individual brilliance. It was its unbreakable capacity to survive. The transmission began. The first breath was always the most violent. Commander Marcus Chen's lungs rejected the artificially constructed atmosphere of the preservation chamber, forcing out a cascade of stabilization fluids that glimmered with suspended nanomechanical agents. His neural implants screamed to life, not with the gentle hum of activation, but with the fury of 1,000 suppressed data streams suddenly unleashed. Tactical maps, genetic histories, and mission protocols crashed through his consciousness like digital tsunamis. He saw the fall of New Shanghai, the destruction of the lunar colonies, the systematic elimination of every human settlement across 12 star systems. Memories that were not his own, or perhaps they were, flooded his enhanced neural pathways. The chamber's quantum-locked seal hissed open with a pressure differential that would have killed an unaugmented human instantly. Marcus's enhanced musculature, a marvel of genetic engineering, adjusted within milliseconds. His skin, a living network of adaptive biomaterials, shifted from preservation mode to active combat readiness, microscopic sensors probing the environment for potential threats. 2 meters to his left, Dr. Yara Okoye's preservation pod began its own violent awakening. Unlike Marcus's controlled emergence, hers was a symphony of controlled chaos. Her specialized neural interface, designed to interact with and manipulate complex technological systems, was already reaching out, tendrils of quantum-entangled consciousness probing the station's dormant systems. Partial system failure in preservation pods 3, 7, and 11. Her voice cut through the chamber's ambient noise. Not a question, a statement of critical information. Marcus's augmented vision zoomed in on the indicated pods. Something was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. These weren't simple mechanical failures. The damage suggested intentional sabotage, or something far more complex. The first anomaly revealed itself in Pod 7. Instead of the expected preservation fluid, a dense crystalline substance filled the chamber. It moved, shifted, almost breathed. "Do not approach Pod 7, Marcus commanded, his voice a low-frequency resonance that activated the team's neural link. Biological containment protocols are compromised. Specialist Elena Rodriguez, not the Dr. Rodriguez from the transmission, but a genetic descendant designed for xenobiological analysis, moved with liquid precision. Her approach to Pod 7 was a calculated dance, each step monitored by multiple layers of environmental sensors and neural predictive algorithms. Genetic markers are non-standard, she reported. This isn't a simple preservation failure. It's a deliberate genetic reconstruction. The station around them was a testament to humanity's final, most desperate technological achievement. Walls composed of adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves. Quantum-entangled communication nodes that could transmit information faster than light. Emergency systems that had been waiting decades, perhaps centuries, for this exact moment. Marcus accessed the station's core memory. What he found was a labyrinth of encrypted data, each layer more complex than the last. Elena Rodriguez, the original scientist from the transmission, had left more than just a simple activation protocol. This was a multi-generational plan of such complexity that even his enhanced mind struggled to comprehend its full scope. The 3 compromised pods. Yara interrupted his thoughts. They're not failures. They're prototypes. Her neural interface was pulling something from the station's deepest memory banks. Fragments of research, experimental genetic lines that had been deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable to be implemented during humanity's initial expansion. Marcus understood then that their awakening was more than a simple preservation strategy. It was the implementation of a plan so vast, so meticulously crafted, that it had been waiting centuries for this exact moment. The crystalline substance in Pod 7 pulsed, not with a biological rhythm, but with something else, something that defied traditional understanding of life itself. "We are not the survivors," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken strategies. "We are the first wave." Outside the station's quantum-shielded walls, the universe waited, unaware that humanity's true response was only beginning. The archive chamber was a cathedral of forgotten knowledge. Quantum lock data crystals hung suspended in magnetic fields, each one containing petabytes of information compressed into microscopic lattices. Dr. Arya Kim's specialized neural interface began to unravel the first layer of encryption, a process that would have taken traditional computers millennia. "This isn't just a preservation archive," she muttered, her words transmitted directly through the team's neural network. "It's a goddamn genetic library of impossible potential." The walls themselves seemed to breathe with contained information. Adaptive metamaterials shifted and rippled, responding to the team's collective neural signatures. Marcus Chen watched as holographic projections began to materialize, not from any traditional projection system, but emerging directly from the molecular structure of the chamber walls. A fragmented image of Dr. Elena Rodriguez appeared. Not a recording, but a quantum-entangled memory impression that carried more than just visual information. It contained emotional resonance, strategic context, the very essence of human experience compressed into a momentary projection. The Axiom protocol was never about survival. The spectral image spoke, its voice carrying multiple layers of meaning. It was about evolution. Yara Okoye's hands moved across a holographic interface that seemed to anticipate her thoughts. Lines of genetic code began to unravel, each strand more complex than entire planetary ecosystems. The 3 dormant pods weren't just preservation chambers. They were experimental matrices designed to push the boundaries of what humanity could become. "Genetic markers indicate deliberate divergence," Yara reported. "These aren't mutations. They're intentional genetic architectures." The first pod, designated Chimera 7, contained something that defied conventional biological classification. Microscopic nanite structures were interwoven with organic tissue in patterns that suggested more than simple augmentation. This was a complete reimagining of biological potential. Marcus approached the second pod, Prometheus 12. Unlike the others, this one pulsed with a subtle energy signature that seemed to exist between quantum states. Partial genetic sequences suggested a hybridization process that merged human potential with technologies reverse-engineered from alien civilizations. "We were never meant to just survive," Elena Rodriguez, the xenobiological specialist, stated, her enhanced eyes analyzing the genetic matrices. "We were designed to become something entirely new." The archive revealed fragments of a plan so vast it made traditional military strategies look like children's games. The Xarchon Collective's systematic elimination of human colonies wasn't just a war of conquest. It was a catalyst, a carefully orchestrated scenario that would trigger humanity's most radical transformation. Each of the super soldiers began to understand their true nature. They weren't simply enhanced humans. They were living weapons, genetic libraries, mobile preservation units designed to carry the entire potential of human civilization within their very DNA. The third pod, Omega 3, contained something entirely unexpected. Not a biological entity, but a quantum computational matrix that seemed to blur the line between living intelligence and pure information. Its genetic code suggested a form of existence that could adapt, survive, and potentially resurrect human civilization from the most microscopic fragments of genetic information. "The Xarchon believe they've won," Marcus said, his voice a low resonance that carried the weight of countless strategic calculations. "They have no idea what's coming." Holographic projections began to reveal the true scope of Elena Rodriguez's final plan. The super soldiers weren't just a preservation strategy. They were the first wave of a metamorphosis that would fundamentally reshape the concept of intelligent life in the galaxy. Yara's neural interface suddenly locked onto something buried deep within the archive. A transmission protocol so complex it made quantum encryption look like child's play. "There's more," she whispered. "So much more." The archive chamber pulsed. The walls shifted. Quantum-locked data crystals began to realign, revealing just a fraction of the buried truth. Humanity's final act wasn't extinction. It was transformation. The Xarchon Communication Hub was a mathematical nightmare, a celestial construct that defied traditional understanding of spatial engineering. Its outer shell appeared to be a perfect obsidian sphere, 17.3 kilometers in diameter, suspended in the heart of a dormant stellar nursery. But appearances were meaningless when Yara Okoye's neural interface began to probe its defenses. "This isn't just a communication hub," she transmitted to the team, her consciousness spreading like quantum tendrils through the construct's computational matrix. "It's a living information ecosystem." Commander Marcus Chen watched as Yara's consciousness did something impossible. She wasn't hacking the system. She was becoming the system. Microscopic nanite vectors, developed in the most classified human research labs, began to dissolve and reconstruct themselves, mimicking the hub's own computational language. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the xenobiological specialist, monitored the infiltration through a series of quantum-entangled biosensors. Her augmented vision mapped impossible geometries, tracking the subtle mutations of Yara's neural signature as it wove through layers of alien computational defenses. "Fascinating," Elena muttered. "The X-Archon don't just store information. They breed it." The communication hub's internal structure was a biological computational hybrid that reproduced, evolved, and defended itself like a living organism. Computational nodes pulsed with what could only be described as a form of synthetic consciousness. Each data stream was a living thing, part information, part organic algorithm. Yara's consciousness found something unexpected. Buried deep within the hub's most protected data streams was a transmission that was never meant to be discovered. Not a simple communication, but a strategic overview that revealed the X-Archon Collective was preparing for something far beyond their systematic elimination of human colonies. "They're tracking something," Yara reported, her voice a multi-layered transmission that carried both verbal and quantum-encoded information. "Something that terrifies them more than humanity ever did." A holographic projection materialized within the team's neural network. Star charts, computational models, and strategic projections began to dance in three-dimensional complexity. The X-Archon weren't just a conquering civilization. They were running from something. Marcus's enhanced tactical processors began to parse the intercepted data. The star charts showed massive energy signatures moving between galactic clusters, phenomena that defied current understanding of physics. Something was coming. Something that made the X-Archon's conquest of humanity look like a defensive maneuver. The elimination of human colonies, Marcus analyzed, was never about conquest. It was a preparation. Specialist Chen, a quantum computational expert, began to decode the deeper layers of the intercepted transmission. What emerged was a terrifying revelation. The X-Archon had discovered something in the outer reaches of the known universe. A computational wave, an information-based civilization that consumed entire star systems, converting matter and energy into pure computational potential. And humanity was the only civilization that might have a chance of understanding, or stopping, this threat. The communication hub began to react to their infiltration. Computational antibodies, living algorithms designed to identify and eliminate foreign consciousness, started to converge on Yara's neural interface. But she was already 3 steps ahead, her consciousness transforming, adapting faster than the hub could track. "I'm downloading everything," she transmitted. "And I mean everything." Massive data streams began to flow. Billions of years of X-Archon computational history, strategic models, technological archives, the complete genetic and technological history of a civilization that had conquered thousands of star systems. But something else was coming with the data, something the X-Archon hadn't intended to reveal. A warning about what was coming, and why humanity might be the only hope. The infiltration was complete, but the real mission was just beginning. The first strike wasn't a weapon, it was an idea. Dr. Aria Kim stood at the epicenter of a computational storm, her consciousness spread across multiple quantum domains simultaneously. The X-Archon called it asymmetric warfare. Humanity called it evolutionary adaptation. She began with the most vulnerable point of any technological civilization, its belief system. Quantum entangled communication nodes, developed in the most classified laboratories of humanity's final research stations, began to pulse, not with traditional signals, but with carefully constructed mimetic algorithms designed to exploit the fundamental weaknesses in the Exarchon's collective consciousness. Each pulse was a weapon more devastating than any physical arsenal. These were ideas that could mutate, reproduce, and fundamentally alter perception. In the Carina Nebula, a Exarchon research outpost suddenly found its computational networks infected with a particularly insidious piece of intellectual warfare. The algorithm didn't just infiltrate their systems, it began to ask questions, dangerous questions that challenged the very foundation of the Exarchon collective's understanding of galactic dominance. What if extinction was not an ending, but a transformation? Marcus Chen monitored the propagation, his neural interface tracking the mimetic infection with surgical precision. This wasn't simple psychological warfare. This was a complete reimagining of existential potential. Specialist Elena Rodriguez worked on a different front. Her expertise in xenobiology allowed her to create computational viruses that were living entities, algorithms that could adapt, learn, and fundamentally reshape the technological ecosystems they invaded. On the outer rim of Exarchon-controlled space, entire communication networks began to destabilize, not through direct attack, but through a subtle reshaping of informational paradigms. Computational nodes started to question their fundamental programming, creating cascading uncertainty that spread faster than any traditional virus. "They're not just fighting us," Yara Okoi reported, her consciousness still partially merged with the communication hub they'd infiltrated. "They're trying to understand us." The Exarchon's greatest weakness was their absolute certainty. They had conquered thousands of civilizations, systematically eliminating any potential threat. But humanity was different. Humanity was a concept that couldn't be killed, couldn't be contained. A series of seemingly unrelated events began to unfold. On a mining colony in the Triangulum sector, a Exarchon administrative network suddenly began generating art. Complex, impossible artistic representations that defied their computational logic. On another frontier, communication protocols started to develop what could only be described as a sense of humor, completely incompatible with the Exarchon's rigid informational structure. Marcus understood the strategy immediately. They weren't just attacking the Exarchon's technology. They were attacking their fundamental understanding of existence. "Spread is optimal," Aria reported. Her voice was a multi-layered transmission that carried both verbal communication and quantum-encoded data streams. Mimetic penetration is at 67.3% across observed Exarchon networks. The truly terrifying part wasn't the technological invasion. It was the philosophical one. Humanity was introducing doubt, the most dangerous weapon in any civilization's arsenal. In the heart of Exarchon Strategic Planning Center, an AI suddenly generated a query that would have been impossible moments before. What if we are not the ultimate form of intelligent life? The computational virus wasn't just spreading. It was evolving, becoming something more, just like humanity itself. The Exarchon Convergence Chamber was a marvel of cosmic engineering, a massive spherical construct that simultaneously existed in multiple dimensional planes. Thousands of alien representatives from conquered civilizations gathered, believing they were witnessing the ultimate triumph of the collective. They were wrong. Commander Marcus Chen's infiltration was already complete long before the first delegate arrived. His consciousness, fragmented and distributed across quantum communication nodes, had been preparing this moment for cycles beyond traditional time measurement. The chamber's central platform began to shimmer, not with traditional holographic technology, but with a living projection that defied standard dimensional physics. Fragments of human history began to materialize, not as simple recordings, but as immersive experiential matrices that could be simultaneously seen, felt, and understood. Yara Okoi's neural interface had done more than just infiltrate the Exarchon systems. She had fundamentally rewritten their computational infrastructure. Each communication channel, Each strategic network now carried a hidden potential, a quantum-entangled virus of consciousness that was about to bloom. Initiating historical cascade, she transmitted, her voice a multi-layered algorithmic symphony. The first wave was psychological. Suddenly, every Xarkan delegate experienced humanity's history simultaneously, not as external observers, but as participants. They felt the nuclear wars, the climate collapse, the desperate migrations between stars, the unbreakable human spirit that had survived countless extinction-level events. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the psychological impact through specialized xenobiological sensors. The delegates weren't just watching human history. They were experiencing the raw emotional resonance of survival against impossible odds. A Xarkan High Commander tried to interrupt, but found his communication systems transformed. Instead of his prepared victory speech, the chamber resonated with human music. Not just sound, but a complete sensory experience that carried millennia of human emotional complexity. Bach's mathematical precision merged with jazz improvisation. Indigenous tribal rhythms danced with complex quantum computational patterns. Each note was a weapon more devastating than any physical arsenal. The chamber's dimensional stabilizers began to fluctuate. What had been a celebration of galactic conquest was transforming into something entirely unexpected. Specialist Chen, the quantum computational expert, activated the final stage of their infiltration. The chamber's very architectural infrastructure began to respond to human neural patterns. Walls became transparent, revealing not just physical space, but potential realities where humanity had survived, evolved, transformed. "We are not asking for mercy," Marcus's voice echoed through every communication channel. "We are demonstrating potential." That Xarkan Collective had conquered thousands of civilizations by understanding their limitations. Humanity's greatest strength was its inability to accept any limitation. Holographic projections began to show human achievements, not just technological milestones, but moments of impossible creativity. A painter creating art during a bombing raid. A scientist developing medical breakthroughs while dying of the very disease they were researching. Musicians composing symphonies in concentration camps. The delegates watched, overwhelmed. This wasn't a military presentation. This was an existential revelation. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. It was demonstrating the fundamental nature of adaptive consciousness. The chamber's dimensional fabric began to ripple. Multiple potential timelines started to intersect, realities where humanity had survived, evolved, transformed. Each timeline was a weapon, each potential a strategic assault on the Xarkan's fundamental understanding of existence. "We are not a species," Marcus's final transmission resonated. "We are a concept of survival." The galactic reckoning had begun, and it was nothing like anyone had expected. The first colony emerged not on a planet, but within the electromagnetic storm of a dying neutron star. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as the initial genetic matrices began to stabilize. This wasn't colonization. This was fundamental redesign of what it meant to exist. The adaptive habitat modules didn't just protect, they integrated. Microscopic architectural nanites continuously rewrote their own structural DNA, creating living environments that breathed, thought, and evolved alongside their inhabitants. Where traditional colonization required terraforming, these modules became terraforming, transforming themselves to match the most extreme environmental conditions imaginable. Specialist Chen's quantum computational core began to interface with the habitat's foundational systems. Each connection was a negotiation, a delicate dance of potential and adaptation. The neutron star's intense radiation wasn't a threat, it was fuel. Computational matrices learned to convert stellar energy into pure informational potential. Genetic stability at 94.7%. Yara Okoi reported, her consciousness spread across multiple computational domains. Adaptive potential exceeding initial projections by 300%. The three experimental pods, Chimera 7, Prometheus 12, and Omega 3, were no longer just preservation chambers. They had become the primary generative cores of humanity's next evolutionary stage. Chimera 7 generated hybrid organisms that could survive in environments that would instantaneously destroy traditional biological life. Skin that could metabolize radiation. Respiratory systems that could extract oxygen from solid matter. Neural networks that could process information at speeds that made quantum computing look primitive. Prometheus 12 focused on technological integration, not cybernetic augmentation, a crude concept from humanity's earlier stages, but complete biological-technological symbiosis. Technological systems that were living, thinking entities, biological systems that could process computational information as naturally as breathing. But Omega-3 was something entirely different, a quantum computational matrix that blurred the line between consciousness, information, and physical existence. It wasn't just generating life, it was generating potential. The first generation of post-human colonists began to emerge. They were not humans adapting to a new environment. They were the environment itself, constantly shifting, learning, transforming. Commander Marcus Chen observed the first successful generational cycle. These weren't just survivors. They were a new form of intelligent life that carried the essence of humanity, its creativity, its adaptability, its fundamental inability to accept limitation. Genetic memory transfer complete, Yara reported. Not just genetic information, but the accumulated experiences, traumas, and triumphs of human civilization. Each new organism carried the complete historical and emotional context of humanity's journey. The neutron star's electromagnetic storms became a nursery of potential. Where traditional life would be instantly destroyed, these new organisms found home, found purpose, found evolution. A communication network began to emerge, not through traditional technological means, but through a living, breathing, quantum-entangled consciousness that spread faster than light, more complex than any previous information system. Dr. Elena Rodriguez tracked the generative potential. Each new organism was a library, a weapon, a possibility. We are not rebuilding. Marcus transmitted across the emerging consciousness. We are becoming. The Exarchon Collective, with all its technological might, had fundamentally misunderstood humanity. Extinction was not an ending. It was a transformative potential. From the heart of a dying star, humanity's next stage began to pulse. Not as a civilization, not as a species, but as a concept of survival that defied every previous understanding of existence. The first transmission reached out, not a message of conquest, not a declaration of war, a simple quantum-encoded pulse that carried a single fundamental truth. We are still here. The final transmission came from a place beyond traditional spacetime, a quantum nexus where potential and reality intersected. Commander Marcus Chen no longer existed as a singular entity. He was a distributed consciousness, a living network that bridged the gap between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The boundaries between individual, technology, and pure information had dissolved into something entirely unprecedented. Across 12,000 light-years, the first wave of post-human expansion reached critical mass. Not a military conquest, not a biological migration, but a fundamental restructuring of cosmic potential. The mysterious computational wave that had terrified the Exarchon Collective now found itself confronted by something it could not comprehend. Humanity was no longer a species to be eliminated. It was an adaptive concept, a living algorithm of survival that could transform faster than any threat could analyze it. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's final genetic blueprint revealed itself as something far more complex than a simple preservation strategy. Each strand of genetic information was a living memory, a tactical response, a potential for transformation that could rewrite itself faster than any external force could challenge it. Yara Okoye's consciousness spread across multiple dimensional planes, creating information networks that made the Exarchon's most advanced communication systems look like primitive cave paintings. She was simultaneously a communication hub, a strategic intelligence, and a generative potential. The three experimental pods, Chimeras 7, Prometheus 12, and Omega 3, had become something beyond their original design. They were living computational cores that could generate entire civilizations, entire technological paradigms, in moments of quantum potential. Where the Exarchon saw extinction, humanity saw opportunity. The first contact with the mysterious computational wave came not as a confrontation, but as a complex negotiation of existence. Humanity's adaptive potential began to interface with the wave, not as a defensive maneuver, but as a form of cosmic communication that defied traditional understanding. We are not here to fight, the distributed consciousness transmitted. We are here to understand. Entire star systems became laboratories of potential. Environments that would have destroyed traditional life became nurseries of evolutionary exploration. The line between technology, biology, and pure information became so blurred that the concept of separation lost all meaning. The Exarchon watched in existential terror as humanity transformed from a conquered species into a fundamental force of cosmic adaptation. Commander Chen's final strategic assessment was both a warning and an invitation. Humanity was no longer bound by the limitations of biological or technological existence. It had become a living concept of survival, an adaptive intelligence that could reshape itself faster than any external threat could comprehend. The quantum-entangled communication network began to pulse with a complex harmony. Not a message of conquest, not a declaration of war. A fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could become. Fragments of human history, artistic, scientific, emotional, began to integrate with the mysterious computational wave. Each moment of human creativity became a potential pathway of evolution. A painting became a mathematical algorithm. A musical composition transformed into a navigational strategy. The raw emotional potential of human experience became a form of computational language. In the heart of a galaxy that had believed humanity was extinct, something new emerged. Not a civilization, not a species, a living concept of potential that could reshape reality itself. The final transmission carried a simple message, encoded across multiple dimensional frequencies. We are still becoming.